let's just have Jeff and Wendy introduce themselves to everybody on the call so you guys can get to know these guys, and you guys can just share a little bit about, where you started all the way back when you first came out of school, what you thought you were going to do, and then how your career progressed from there, and then what you've been up to lately. That would be amazing to hear from both of you. So let's just see who goes first. Jeff, you're first.
Thanks. So I guess kind of start where I'm at now, and then we'll go back.
Okay.
I think what you said there. In my 10-second commercial, I usually say, I'm Jeff Bennett. I'm a regional sales manager, business development manager, key accounts manager, national sales manager. And my superpower is to take what my end users' needs are, find out those, and then bring that back through a distribution partner within the marketing channel for the manufacturer of industrial products that I represent. And I like working for the manufacturer specifically. I've been offered before to engage in whenever I've been available for positions to actually go to work for maybe former customers of mine, either end users or distributors. And I just not as preferable for me. It's a better situation. I like being that part of the marketing channel and getting to not only go forward with the product, but also internally influence the marketing side of it, because I do have we'll talk about that here in a minute. I do have a bachelor's in business administration with my major in marketing. And so that's been something that I've always taken, I think, a little bit more of a marketing approach to sales than somebody that maybe came purely from a different discipline. So I think that's that. So that's kind of about me today. And what I'm looking for is a multi-state opportunity. I've had large territories, half of North America. One that I'm interviewing for right now would actually be all the United States, and working for a manufacturer. Several times I've worked for foreign multinational corporations. I enjoy that also. I like that because it allows me the space to be the person within this geographic space and with these set of accounts that I can affect things in a more positive way, I feel like.
And so I don't know that maybe I just missed it, but what industries have you typically worked in?
So I've sold to hardware stores. In my early career, it was paint stores, hardware stores, lumber yards, kind of retail base, both at the local, district, regional levels, as well as the corporate level, called on Home Depot and things like that. That was probably from 2002 to 2018. One-step distributors like Roofing Supply, things like Fastenal, Granger, and those types of entities. And so industrial stuff, where I like that type of business because it's business to business, and everyone that you're talking to has a need for your product, or they just haven't discovered that they have a need for your product yet. And so once they understand that, I use education as kind of my lead in after I gain the information from them, and kind of guide the conversation back to helping them select the right product or mix of products that my company already makes, or start working on developing an adaptation or customization to the products that we make.
Any questions for Jeff from anybody that's on the call? Okay. Wendy. Oh, sorry, Jeff, were you not done?
No. Well, and then I've kind of done heavy haul trailers and industrial valves and air filtration for mobile machinery in the last 5 years.
Gotcha.
I have one question.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Jeff, my question to you is, are you both arranger and strategic?
Yes, I am. Yeah, strategic's my number 2 and a ranger is my number 5.
I would have thought that, listening to your scenario, your jobs and whatnot.
What made you think that?
Well, he's got a lot of pieces going on and a very wide, network of distribution. And I thought about a ranger, especially because, it sounds like he's putting a lot of pieces together.
Yes, that's very accurate. Those arrangers are typically attracted to lots of things moving around dynamically. By the way, if someone's putting dishes away or eating their lunch, can you please go on mute? We're getting a lot of background noise. Thank you. Yeah, if there's a lot of pieces and parts moving around all at the same time, that juggling of all of that seems to be interesting to our arrangers. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So for me, I'm always taking the same, what I like is I become the expert with a line of products, the company that I work for, and then find the applications within multiple different industries they kind of overlap, but they're also different and unique. And one of the things I did do a little bit of prep and read back through, I think it's strategic. I do choose what message for, let's say in the concrete industry, it would be a different message than it would be in the roofing industry. And some of that has to do with the roofing industry would be contractors, or maybe I would be working with architect, depends on even what side of the business, whether it be commercial roofing versus residential and all those type of things.
And why manufacturers? Why do you prefer the manufacturers? What aspect of that just appeals to you?
I think there's more control there. There's more influence there. And also, even though the need is with the end user and the budgets and the dollars are with the end user, nothing's going to happen until there's a product made to satisfy that need. And so, and then distributors are in the middle, and I like to work with distributors, and that's a key thing that I haven't had maybe directly in the last couple of roles that I've been engaged in my career in the last 3-4 years. And I missed that because I do a really great job of getting those distribution partners to buy in and take the education that I'm looking to give to them, and they take that and then they multiply that in their local geographic spaces within where they've already built up the rapport with their customer base. And we're all kind of optimizing and maximizing our efficiencies of, I've got a great product, I've got all the support, I've got things that they can sell, they're going to make money off of, and we're going to both win. Everybody's going to win in the financial business transaction.
Thank you.
Okay, let's introduce you to Wendy. Wendy, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wendy Winkeler. I'm going to go the opposite way of Jeff. I'm going to start from the beginning. I took the Strengths Finder in 2020, and I kind of read through it, and it was okay, and I put it aside, and I've recently rediscovered it, and I've been reading through it with a new perspective. So some interesting memories have come up since thinking about this and talking more with Brandy. I think I would describe myself as curious and kind of leading. Curious and leading. How does that come into play? As a child, as far back as I can remember, I took everything apart in the household, our toasters, our radios, toys, everything. I'd go outside. My mother would get so frustrated with me because the toaster wouldn't be in there when she wanted it out, and I disassembled it and put it back together. Probably not a smart thing for a kid to do, but I did it. I was always disassembling and learning how things worked and working with my brother on small engines. I was just curious on how things worked. Where does the kind of arranging and leadership comes in? Push that curiosity to understanding how things work. I began to apply that to sports. I played softball and I played volleyball in high school. I'm only 5'3", so I'm fairly short, but I was the pitcher and I was the setter, always sort of the center. Didn't want the center of attention. I liked arranging the team and driving plays. That was just, it came to me naturally. Like I could see where the game was going, high game IQ. So I can see these strengths, how they were always there. It just didn't have a name for them as I grew up. So moving on to my professional career, of course I went into engineering. Of course I did. I studied electrical engineering, got out in engineering, went into the real world, began practicing engineering. And the one thing I missed by doing that was I missed the interaction. As an engineer, your world sort of became smaller and you focused very head down, very intensely on a product, a service, a software, something very specific. And I longed to have the interaction. So I moved from engineering into product and project management to allow me again to have that setter and pitcher mindset where I was orchestrating deliverables. That's what I enjoyed. I could work with engineering. I could work with the R&D. I could work with, our marketing and sales teams. I could work with our support teams, always sort of prioritizing that sort of role, centrally running projects and other product deliveries. So it was a very natural fit for me to evolve from engineering into these sort of central roles where I was organizing. I was absolutely in my heyday as a PM because I was orchestrating so many variables, realizing that I get bored very easily. I needed a lot of stimulation. So being in this PM role, I was getting new projects, new customers, always learning new things. So that really excited me. So I stayed in that role for a long time, orchestrating. Once, I had sort of spent over 6 years in project management, wanted a new role. I evolved into more leadership roles. I was afraid. I was orchestrating groups of people as a project manager, but they didn't report to me. They were indirect reports to me. I managed to move into a leadership role and found out I loved it because it allowed me to get to know people. That's that relationship piece, right? That's in there. I loved working, getting to know people on an intimate level and helping them achieve their goals while the department would then meet their objectives, applying the strategy, applying the leadership, moving the variables, always finding the right way to help the employee be successful, help the company be successful, create that win-win, like Jeff is saying, the win-win scenario. That's what I thrived at. And throughout my career, I just kept progressing in leadership roles, but always taking on projects that required me to disassemble them, back to that childhood desire to get to know things, disassemble entire organizations, the PMO, the PFM organization, the engineering organization, talking to every single person, finding out their strengths and gifts, reassembling the team back down into something that can then be better than it was before. That's what drove my passion. And I did that all my career at Ericsson until I was laid off at the time of COVID, found another opportunity, again, applying my knowledge across the business, my interest, my capability to sort of see the big picture. So that's what I've done. I've sort of spent my life arranging, organizing, being strategic, developing people, learning, relating. That's always been something I've done, something I've enjoyed. And when I do those things, I'm not exhausted. I can work these long hours, and I did work a lot of hours. I never felt exhausted. I felt thrilled that I was learning something new, that I was helping people, I was helping the business. I was in my strength.
Mm-hmm.
So today I'm still, at this point, I'm an executive in transition. Again, looking for that broad, open-ended role that allows me to touch and learn all, like a Lego, right? And of course I own Legos. Of course I did. And my kids have them, and erector sets, all those things.
I was just gonna
Yeah,
say that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Tinker toys, you name it. I had Lincoln Logs. I had it all because I just love to build. And I would nothing but I tear the whole thing down and rebuild it again because it was the thrill of learning how to do it without the instructions this time. So for me, looking for a Lego, looking for a company that has all the different Legos that I can look at all the Legos 360 and then put them all back together in a more efficient way of working. That's a win-win for the company and the employee.
Yeah, so you guys can hear, she uses the word efficiency. That's really coming from that arranger piece. And then of course the relationship building is going to come not only from the relator, but also from the arranger. When you have relator and arranger together, the arrangement becomes around arranging people and relationships as well as just simply arranging operations.
Correct.
Yeah, we hear your drive through the achiever. We hear the strategic thinking coming into play. And then, tell us a little bit about your sense of responsibility. Where is that coming in?
It is probably the most unrelenting feeling and obligation I have. Like I am loyal, I am trustworthy, I am honest to a fault. Like I absolutely will not lie to you. I just, if I say I'm going to get it done, it's absolutely going to get done. Like
Mhm.
it's just not in my nature to tell someone that I'm going to get this done. I would just be absolutely mortified if I didn't deliver something to you. It would have to absolutely be something catastrophic where I didn't deliver it. I will work tirelessly to make sure that any commitment I make, and worse, what my team makes. So I'm always having to understand so that I can meet those commitments. I don't like to let people down. I don't like my reputation to be someone who doesn't provide the, whatever I told them I would provide. It's just, it's to a fault that I have to get things done. And I own things in such a way that I think it uses the word psychological ownership. My sense of ownership is beyond normal. Like I absolutely, it's mine. I own it. I'm going to get it done no matter what it takes for me to get it done.
And when something has slipped through the cracks, when something has not been delivered on time or with the high quality that you expect, what feeling has come into you? Like, what have you had to do? I'm trying not to give away the answer.
Yeah, well, I would say that, I'm the type of kid my parents never had to punish because I was always harder on myself. If you've ever heard someone say that, I never had to punish my child, they punish themselves. I punish myself. So it means that if I don't deliver, I'm going to go to you, hopefully before I miss the deadline. It's almost always before I miss the deadline. Look, Brad, I'm having trouble. Something's happened. I can't get it done. I'll absolutely do whatever it takes and I'll meet that commitment to you, right? So I make sure that I make that connection with you. I apologize and I make it right no matter what I've done, because life happens, things can happen. But for me,
Right.
that sense of guilt, that sense of I've let Brad down, I mean, I'll lose sleep. I will lose sleep out
Yeah.
of that obligation.
So we noticed that we we don't see any orange, floating into your top 5, but when I select the top 10, then we get all kinds of orange. And I'm bringing this up because we're about to compare it to Jeff's as well. And so we've got this sort of subtle supplementary or supportive level of influence that comes into play through your activator, self-assurance, and significance. It's an undertone, let's say, to your top 5 strengths. When you think of that or you look at it that way, I mean, how is that working for you?
I know personally that I lean on my top 5 most of the time.
And
I would say
I
those.
heard number 7. I heard the learner.
The learning is there. And I thought learning would be higher, to be honest, because I always like to learn new things, but I put responsibility above it, right? So
Mhm.
for me, the learning comes in trying to understand how to make things better. So in order for me to understand how to make things more efficient, I need to understand what can make things more efficient. Maybe I need to learn about AI or automation. So I go and teach myself more about the subject. I won't become a master, but at least I'll understand what are the things that I can choose from and who do I activate in order to get that to happen. So the learning is becoming the broadening of my efficiency and productivity in order to bring that into the team through a hire or a self-development or a solution that I can propose to the broader team.
Mhm. Yeah, and then you're subtly influencing or getting people to do the things that you need them to do.
And I had to learn that the hard way. I've always been, like a 4-year-old. I do it myself. Like I've always been so self-reliant, even to myself, where I don't let others in because I'm so afraid of failing because of that sense of responsibility. But I've had to grow up and figure out that when you take on broad roles at a company, you have to rely on others. You have to, in order to have the effect on the company, you have to have a broader organization all marching toward a similar goal. So for me, all of this comes into play when I look at the broader function and having to bring in the broader team through influence.
Yeah.
I had to influence people that didn't report to me. I had to influence them on, hey, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Here's how it could be a benefit to you. Would you be interested in partnering with me to make this happen? Because you can't force someone who doesn't work for you to have the same goal. They have other things they need to be achieving. So if you make it worthwhile to them through influencing, then you can achieve more. So that was a skill I had to learn. I learned that later in my leadership career, that is another form of leadership, and it's very, very critical for success of a company.
Was someone going to ask Wendy a question?
Randy, I had a question.
Yeah.
It's actually for you, but it's about Wendy. When you look at her pictures from the top 5 and then compare it to the top 10, they look tangibly different.
Very different. Yeah.
So the question is, when we look at how to develop somebody like a Wendy, do we pay more attention to the top 5, or do we look at the whole picture of the top 10, or
Yeah.
at a confusing picture we get?
So
Does that
here's,
make sense?
yes, here's what I do. I'll start with top 5 because we know we gotta encourage this execution, the strategic thinking, relationship building, and we've got to encourage this proportion. So we know this for sure. And I also look and go, we know we for sure got to encourage this directiveness, this organization abilities, and her finishing abilities. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll go, okay, now what else does she have? Oh, she has another one in directive. So she's actually dually strong there with the futuristic strategic, and her futuristic has probably intensified and lifted up a bit because her strategic is so high. So I definitely want her to, use futuristic and use strategic in the directive zone. Then I see that she also gets 2 other zones. So instead of tripling on these zones, she gets the moderative and the creative zone. So then I look at, well, where are they? Well, the moderative is in 6 and 7. So, you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have the 6 and 7. And I'm like, because we have 2 of these in the same zone, even though they're different colors, this is probably still a very strong zone for her. And I would be gauging that in a consultation with her. Like, do you use the activator? How do you use it? How turned on is it? Is it something that you enjoy doing, or is it something that you enjoy delegating? Along with the learner. And I'd be listening for it in conversation as well to see if we should put time and energy into this category here and into these strengths. Now, when it comes to number 8 and 9, the only relation that we have here is that there is another orange over here. But it's number 6, and it's also 8 and 9, and they're stacked here. So then I would actually have to really be assessing, how creative are you? How much does it really matter that you're in the spotlight? How confident are you really? Are you leveraging these, or are these things that you could potentially outsource to someone else? Like, could someone else market her, for example? So I just be having to really listen, because of the way her structure is. You can see, like, if we looked at top 10, she's got 5 different categories that are all somewhat equal in height. If I did a exponential sort of distribution here, it would change the height of these a little bit. We'd see it a little bit more clearly, a weighted formula. So then the next thing I look at then with her would be go to her strength rank and say, okay, like, if you had to draw a line here, where would that be for you? Because some people's line is drawn clear between 12 and 13, where they feel like, I really capitalize and leverage on my top 12. Other people are like, no, I'm done at 6. Anything below 6, I give to someone else to do. And so what is most important, Brad, is that we are definitely using number 1. We're definitely using number 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even number 6. But it starts to become a bit fuzzy after that of, okay, how effective are you in these other areas? Do they feel really strong for you? Or do you feel like you just, you don't use them? And it's a very individual thing. So it's, there's your answer, right? It's an answer, but it's also like, you got to customize that for each person that you're working with. Yeah.
It's a confusing answer, but it's an answer.
Yeah. So if we ask Wendy, where is your line? She, we know for sure she's feeling 7 and above, because she kind of said that.
Yeah, I think I'd draw the line after learner. After that, it just becomes I'm tapping into my team around me more frequently, but the learning is supportive of the other things I need to achieve. I don't learn first and think about how to apply it. I get into a situation and I learn my way out of it. If that's a better way to put it, I learned my way out of it.
It makes complete sense to me as an achiever number one. I just get in it and see what happens.
I use it to my advantage, just, I need to,
Yeah.
learn something here to get better at something or to hire the right person. I'll learn just enough to be dangerous and then get somebody who really knows how to do it.
Sounds like an engineer to me,
Yeah.
So let's go back to Jeff now, because Jeff has some interesting differences here.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question, Brad. So the one thing that I heard when you were talking, Jeff, was this outreach to all these other people. Like, you said something about really loving to broaden your network. And I think that's coming from the woo, which Wendy talks primarily about, functioning internally within an organization, within a team. Do you also agree with that you have a desire to get outside the organization and reach out to people and meet people that you've never met before?
Well, I'm in outside sales.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more customer focused than I am, day in and day out, to make things happen, I've got to start with 10 customers a day and get one of them to say something positive to move the sales process to the next level. Then if I don't have what I need, then I would go internally and find it at that point in time. That's whenever I become I need to learn this. They went over it in my onboarding, but now it's time to become a past introductory novice to self-sufficient, burgeoning, blossoming expert.
And would you also say that you enjoy operating in a more non-traditional capacity?
Describe non-traditional for me first.
Well, I left it vague for you to define for us.
Let's just put it this way. I gladly and kind of very forwardly say that I haven't had my name on a cubicle or a desk since 2001. I found a lot of humor and a lot of other people's expense, probably unfortunately, whenever we went into COVID lockdown, because I'd already been working from home. Thank you, for almost 20 years, or whatever. So 18 years. And so I already had all these struggles that, wow, my wife's walking through the house as a school teacher in July while I'm trying to run my home office, and I've got the 8-year-old that's not happy today. I've been working on that for years. So that's been the way my family has kind of operated for years. And then traveling a lot also. So I'm always probably, in most roles that I've had, 40 to 50% overnight travel. So going back to the thing that, whenever you're talking about the woo, in the individualization right underneath that, I think that kind of feeds back into the woo, in that I want, and probably back into strategic of, I love being an individual myself, and being who I am, and I want other people to feel that too. So I think that's part of my connection, and I love talking to whoever they are in the organization to get the information that I need. Then I put it all together strategically to that marketing intel or that account intel or whatever, to either back up my proposal that I'm going to give, or kind of guide people to my products and those type of things.
Yeah. So when I look at your strengths, I go, okay, ideation, strategic, entrepreneur. woo, and woo is sales. Oh, and ideation strategic can be also marketing. So I'm going, okay, marketing, entrepreneur, sales. Oh, wait, then there's this individualization, which paired with woo is sales. But when you do individualization in a ranger, that's team management off the charts. And then we get to learner, which is then more of like consultant. So when I look at your top 6, I go, man, how do you live with yourself? You've got all these things going on. You're a natural entrepreneur. You're super creative off the charts. You've got a sales part of your personality. You got a team management part of your personality. You've got a consultant part of your personality, a logistics part of your personality. And it just tells me that you really need an environment that has you doing a lot of different things and wearing a lot of different hats and playing in different roles to be engaged. Is that
I used to work for a rep group, and we had 18 different manufacturers we represented in 4 different, you were talking about major category, like macroeconomic industry verticals. Something that would have been an item that could go into building the next big, large stadium or public works, and like clevises and things, and iron working and iron erection and those type of things, all the way down to selling hand tools that were ergonomically designed and that were targeted at women in hardware stores.
Mm-hmm.
And the working with all those different people internally and externally.
Mm-hmm.
I had literally at that point, with the 2 guys that owned the rep group, somewhere around 20 different people that were, let's just say that at some level I reported to.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't bother me, especially, I enjoyed being there for 7.5 years and working for that company.
So when I was listening to Wendy, I heard her talking about this execution. She has a hard time letting other people do things. She loves to execute with all this purple, where you have, one that's really glaringly execution oriented, but the rest aren't. So would you say that you enjoy, getting everybody arranged and aligned, but then really letting go and letting everybody?
Yeah, and that goes back to what I was talking about. In my superpower is to work with that distribution partner.
Yeah.
To go in and see the strategy, get the idea, learn what they need, individualize it to their company, their model, their ownership, their org chart, connect with them, and activate all that, and get them kind of up to a certain point. Maybe it's a bad analogy or kind of a cliche, but the guys that I work for, whenever I work for the rep group, they said, you want to go in, you want to set up the Coke machine, you want to set up the jukebox in the right place, and put the right records on it, or the right products in the jukebox, or in the convenience, in the vending machine.
Yeah.
And you just want it to be arranged that way, and then once you've got it set up, you're just maintaining it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's whenever I really can grow a territory, gain market share.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to beat the competition too.
Yeah. So Wendy, when I look at yours, where I kind of, what glares out at me is just that one little lonesome, relationship building one at the top at number 2, because it's like, okay, I know you have a strong focus on execution and the green, the strategic and learning, and the influence. But you seem to have to, one, really capitalize on relator to build and maintain relationships. Yet you've also said this was really, really important to you. But my question is, like, how do you build and maintain long-term relationships with people if you don't relate to them, if you don't connect or understand them?
Well, in order to build a relationship, you have to connect. So there's really no other way. So for me, it's the relator is all about achieving the making the achievements, making the arrangements. So kind of like I meet 10 people and we're building a team, and I need to know what everyone's role is. So I start with getting to know everyone immediately, finding out what they're strong at, what they're skilled at, their interest, whatever. And then I start to place them, right? So that relator comes in organizing the organization, then activating them to move forward, and then constantly learning about how the team is functioning, and going in and making an adjustment. You know what, you're not first base, you're shortstop. So I can't get away from the relationship. It's a necessary part of what I do as a leader of an organization. What I do as, if I worked with Jeff, like Jeff and I are in the same organization, he'd be a dream in the sales role, because he's finding, and he knows what he can sell. He knows all the players, he knows the customers. When he comes to me, he's already arranged the sale into an organized conversation with me, so that I can take it over, and then I begin. Then I take his work from, in a proposal and a handover to delivery organization, and then he lets me run to build everything, and then going to talk to, I got to pick the team, I got to pick the players, I got to pick my stakeholders, I got to understand who's my player on the customer side. So that relationship never goes away. I have to have, there's no way around building those relationships. You have to, in order for me to feel success, I have to have people who want to do the job, who can do the job, who can be successful at the job, and whether my customer is happy, because Jeff won't be able to sell again. If I've upset the customer and I missed, what do you mean you wanted that? I should know that. I have to have a conversation. So for me, it's all about lots and lots of conversations and check-ins in order for me to make sure that the process is working efficiently in the delivery, right? And we hand over an acceptable product to our customer.
Yeah, so it's almost like it's less about actually relating. You might do that more on a personal level where you have your close friends that you relate with. But in the workspace, it's more about helping people be at their best, because you put them in the, you get them in the right seat. And so when you do that, then that person experiences success. Then they want to be on your team and have you as their leader, because they're getting to do their best work.
And because I do that, I have loyal employees. I had an HR nickname me the Talent Factory once. And one of our executives says, "Hey, I want that nickname." And I said, "What does it mean?" And she says, "Have you seen the amount of leaders you churn out of your organization, and how people are banging down your door to work for you? Like, you don't didn't really pay attention to it, but I always had people on the team, and I had long, no attrition or hardly any attrition. And those who attrited went out to be leaders." And she said, that is what we call a talent factory, because you look way beyond yourself and the company, and you get every single employee in their strength zone, and they're just flying off the charts and learning how to be leaders, and you're propagating them across the company. So like, okay, that's what talent factory is. So that's the relationship side. What do you want to do? What is it you're achieving? What do you, here's what I see you good at. Have you thought about that? What do you want to do in the next 3 years, and start help them plan out their career? Even if that meant they left the company, I would still have that conversation with them, because that employee would give me everything they had: loyalty, output, efficiency, whatever, productivity, for the time that I had them on board, even if that meant they went somewhere else outside of my team or outside the company, in a positive way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when, Brandy,
Yes.
quick question. So all those are great as far as a relator, but how does that tie into connectedness? Because I don't see connectedness on her top end of the chart. How do those two go together? Because
so are you thinking that you're hearing connectedness and then you don't see it?
well, that's what I'm hearing.
You're hearing her arranger.
And
So
it's strong,
yeah.
intense.
And you may get,
So what's the missing link for the connectedness compared to relator?
Tad, are you on the phone still?
I'm here.
Do you want to tackle that question?
Well, I'll give it an attempt. The relator side is I'm high relator connectedness. So the relator side is the relationships that I build that are deep, long-term commitments, really know that person, work together real well. Connectedness is more of how everything with people fit together. It's more of the network, the quilt, so to speak, of all those relationships. And I think the connectedness, even though it seems more individual, is probably more of a global thing than relator. Relator to me is very deep and pointed into the person and the relationship that we have. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
can you hear like how a ranger is different than connectedness? Because a ranger to me is going arrange, rearrange, rearrange. It's a lot of movement, where connectedness is philosophical. It's kind of like seeing how everything connects without moving and juggling all the parts along with it.
Yeah, it's more of a big picture thing where I think arranger is like where are we going to put the furniture, but connectedness is more of how we're going to build the building and arrange it on the property, and it's this big picture thing. So
Which way is the sun going to come through the windows, Tad?
yeah.
And Wendy has a big picture because she has strategic. So this is why this is a great question, Brad, because it's very complicated, right? So Wendy is seeing the big picture. She's seeing the tactical with the strategic and the arranger. She's got the relationship piece. She's executing upon that. So it's starting to look like this connectedness, but it's motivated a little differently. And the way that it functions is a little different. So it's moving and moving and moving at people and moving the tasks and moving the things, and then aligning with the big picture and seeing the strategy, and then coming back down into tactical, and then going back up to the alignment and coming back down. And connectedness is more spiritual, more philosophical. It sees how we are all connected through energy. And it has this sort of, it's hard for me to describe because it's 34 for me.
But I have an observation. I have an observation to share, because that's an interesting comment. I would say that my skills and operations are very tactical, almost to the point that I use the people to do the job to get done. Like, that can sound very negative. And I felt that because I felt like after the project was disassembled, I lost touch with some of these people. So that connectedness, that's where it's probably happening, where I was always focusing on achieving, and then I would lose touch with individuals. So I actually recognized that I wasn't building long-term relationships with some of these amazing people that I've worked with. So I went in and got my certification in coaching. That was to allow me to ask more holistic questions of individuals, to get in a different mindset with people, that they weren't just delivering on projects. As a leader, I had to connect organizations and connect people with missions. And so I had to use that skill that wasn't high up. So I started doing things like hosting women's groups, affinity groups, right? And that was allowing me to tap into a side of me that was not as easy to execute on a daily basis, was that side. So I had to be very, very purposeful in getting my certification coaching, getting involved with these groups so I could relate to employees outside of, I'm really good at programming this code for this device. I had to get into what motivated them to come into work each day. That was to tap into another level of the organization. So I would say connectedness is more on the spiritual, holistic level. I was executing, and like, if you wanted to get something done, I was the girl to go to. But when it came to people, I had a lot to learn, and I had to learn that later in my career as I started to tap into long-term goals of people in the organization, leadership development, hiring, and mentoring and coaching. That was something I had to learn.
Which is one-on-one, which is that relator. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but not asking whether you like to program. This is something very, very open about that individual and where they fit in life, in the job, outside of just work. That was something new for me.
Gotcha. And if we look at the connectedness definition here, we can see the first thing on it is called a healer. It's somebody who wants to unite humankind and is trying to proactively bridge different people and different cultures and different arenas. They're thinking at a global macro level, but they're also thinking about how does an individual's action in that moment impact the person next to them, impact the family, impact the city, impact the globe.
Interesting.
And they're really in tune to how, individual actions connect socially, and then how that impacts, laws, for example, around the world. It's much more of like, we are all one, we are all humans, we're all connected. So your action impacts what, you know, it's that ripple effect of energy. What you're doing matters. So Jeff, I know that's number 8 for you. Any thoughts on this?
Well, ideation kicked in, had like 7 different ideas, like different things. I thought about the freeway. You know, we're all connected through the freeway. We're all connected through the airports.
Yes.
You know, and there's a lot of people that can't handle that.
Yeah.
They can't handle that emotionally and physically. Sometimes physically they can't handle it. They lose it right at the airport. They have those incidents. You know, I mean, you have those things. So we are all connected, and it's funny. The more you were talking about that, the more, whether it's in my personal life, but I even saw it from an account management perspective, thinking that outside sales type mentality, the connectedness of how, whenever I used to be in the metal roofing manufacturer role, how even I went and trained my largest distributor, their truck drivers and their warehouse guys, and helped them to where they were more efficiently, because they asked me to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I built a relationship and I was connected, because I would bring them taco casa, you know, like for lunch one day, or feed them, you know, for Thanksgiving with, you know, and these things were on my expense account, but still I made the effort to go into a branch with 28 different people and work with everybody.
Yeah.
And so I was connected in there. And, you know, the cool thing about that is at some point they're bringing me sales leads. Hey, you need to talk to this contractor. He's just, you know, or I saw this in this neighborhood and you need to go over there. They're doing a lot of your type of product over there, I think. And they'll even take, you know, now with cell phones, they'll take pictures and say, hey, this is what we just delivered the other day, or I saw your competitor, you know, next door to you.
And I'm hearing you say you can easily connect with all walks of life at all levels of the organization. Is that true?
So Fred in Career Solutions taught me how to put together a resume and use these handles. And so one of them I had was an account chameleon. I can speak to someone at the counter, at the back dock, as well as the CEO of a company.
Yeah.
And there's something that actually my dad had terminology. He said he's a white collar redneck. You can put him in a tuxedo and he'll go into a banquet and behave, but he also can be in a pair of overalls hanging out with the guys at the feed store.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just as happy to be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the connectedness.
Mm-hmm.
I just try to be happy wherever I'm at and make those around me happy too.
Brad, does that help give you some perspective?
Kinda. Yeah. I mean, I definitely get the arranger piece.
Yeah.
That is a natural thing that I can tie into.
And I think you also have to look at 2 different things. What is being produced that you see, and where it's coming from, the motivation. Because, for example, let's take this example, achiever relator combination. If you're achieving relationships and you're relating to other achievers, and you are, let's say, achieving for your friends, it may really look like responsibility, right? So everybody says I'm highly responsible because I have this relator achiever in my top 5. Well, I don't really like responsibilities like the responsibility people do. That's not my forte. It's not, I mean, I will operate there to some degree because it's in my top 10, but it's not where my actions are proactively coming from for the people around me. It's coming from, I care about you, relator, so I'm going to do something for you, achiever. Where other people might see it, they might perceive that as, oh, she's very responsible. She always meets her commitments and gets things done.
So on the flip side, if I look at Jeff's chart,
Yes.
he's not responsible at all.
Comic relief there.
So yeah, Yeah, I relate to Peter Pan. I agree.
Oh, you can relate. I get
Now, where's
that.
his relator? It's 24.
Just check.
What else do people
Didn't
on the
mean to get
call?
you off track there. I just.
Oh, no worries. What else do you guys see on the charts that are interesting to you that you want to talk about with while you have them here on the call today?
Well, I can really relate to Jeff because we share 3 of the same top 5.
Which 3?
2, 3, and 4. Strategic, woo, and individualization. And I was going to say that when he was describing how he could relate to all these different people, like on the dock or on the counter or that's individualization all over the place.
Yeah, well, individualization is not relating to them, but it is catering to their preferences. And it's very intuitive and keen on understanding what somebody kind of needs on the other side of the table, which allows you to cater to that and adjust to that and give them what they need. But that's not relating. Relating is actually feeling the similar way. So for example,
Yeah, I'm a chameleon is what I said.
yes.
I go into their, literally, I kind of become them. I mean, I'm almost like what I think is what we call method acting. I'm almost like channeling back through their thoughts and their energy because of what they've told me. I'm kind of like bouncing that back to them.
That's interesting because as a relator, for me, I just remembered what people like, if a particular, like I'd walk in the morning at my job and there was a security guard, there was a building manager. I knew what the security guard's favorite breakfast and coffee was. I knew what the building manager's breakfast and favorites. I'd go and get my coffee and I'd bring them coffee and their breakfast. And they'd be shocked. Like, how did you know I like that? Because I saw them eating it. So my relator comes in a different way. Like,
but why did you decide? Did you decide to put, to take that information and plug it away? Or is it something that you always notice all the time? Or did you do it for a reason?
No, there wasn't anything out of it. It was just because they were, I just decided to do it. Like I wanted to make them happy and I wanted to do something for them. There was nothing in return. There was no project.
Well, no, I don't mean that. I just mean, so, because you have individualization quite high too. It's number 12, right?
Okay.
So for me, I have relator high, but I do not have individualization high. I have consistency high, which means in my individualization is very low. So for the relator, for me, if I just care about you, then I'm going to maybe pick up on these things or try to remember them. I have a really crappy memory, by the way. And so, I may try really hard there, but it's not coming from a place. My brother has individualization. It's not coming from a place of just really caring about what you prefer. It's not coming from a place of like a desire to customize. And it's, I don't have that desire because I have consistency. Again, I want to apply the same thing to everybody, make everybody happy with chocolate chip cookies. It's, why can't everyone be happy with chocolate chip cookies? So for you guys, I'm trying to just uncover a little bit more of the reasons, the whys behind the motivation of what you're doing, why that matters to you.
Well, I think I would come out of using the connectedness and the individualization and the woo. I think I would use all of those and the kind of the learner. And like what Wendy's talking about, she just noticed it from an observational level. I would, in conversation, after I got connected with them, understand that we both like the same thing. So that's where it helps me to overcome that memory factor because I'm experiencing it with them. And the way that I'm learning at the height of my learning is experiential. So other than observation, seeing or hearing or listening or reading or whatever, whenever I've that's whenever I would be like, hey, I brought you a Coke Zero. I remember that's our favorite thing to drink together. That's what we do together.
Ah,
Interesting. And
Inside,
mine's like, yeah, it's
inside
interesting.
salesperson. And so then we
Ah,
would share the Coke Zero together while I was visiting their branch location.
shared experience.
Right. And so then I've gotten into a different, and so like whenever I'm in outside sales and if I get the chance to take someone out to lunch or supper, dinner, whatever, to a meal, I always order an appetizer. I always order an appetizer, even if they go, well, no, I'm not really wanting an appetizer, because then we start sharing food, and psychologically we start sharing ideas. Then they're listening to what my ideas are, and they're trying to incorporate them into their needs.
yeah. So that's woo all day long, right? You know how to win people over. You know how to just get them
But I
to,
didn't realize why I was doing that with whenever I got a certain
yeah,
job and everything, and then it hit me one day.
Yeah.
And why I like to go to with at lunchtime, and everybody just order their own pizza, and then we all share a
mhm.
slice of pizza, and everybody gets to be the hero or the expert or whatever, and get to be individualized at the same. Everybody is like on the same level.
Interesting.
But Jeff,
Sushi's kind of the same thing. Anything with chopsticks, same thing.
I was going to ask Jeff. Jeff, you're like, if I remember, you're like putting together like a composite of the people that you're working with. Is that right?
Composite is probably a nicer way. I probably have a profile would probably be the way that it comes out. I try not to be cold about it, but probably
yeah.
a composite. But
Right.
I'm kind of going through and keying on certain tendencies of theirs or characteristics yet, if that's what you're talking about.
No, and I didn't mean it in a negative sense, but I mean, if I hear you correctly, you're really trying to understand what that person needs and how you can meet that need in your function. Is that correct?
Well, a lot of that comes back to, once I understand that, then they've kind of told me. So I don't have to try to guess, because guessing wastes time, and there comes back to the optimization, the maximization, the efficiency. If I just, am able to either convince them that I have what they want, or connect that back to what they said their needs were, that's when the kind of the sales part comes in, once I've done the marketing kind of research. So, but does that explain it?
Yes, it does.
And I come at it a little differently. It's like deep found respect for each person. Like, so like when I had when I was a manager of my team, some cultures don't like public recognition. You have to do that very privately. So I talk to each person, what matters to you? How do you like to be recognized? So some of them are very purposeful conversations, and I make note of that so that I respect the employee's wishes. So if we had dietary restrictions, or we had religious differences, and when they celebrate holidays, or things like that. So I try to always make sure that they are feeling fulfilled, that in their job and in their workplace. So that's why I would just remember, it was never like a profile. Like, and I can see the sales side wanting to know these things. I'd probably be a terrible salesman, but I do remember what's important to these individuals, whether that's through observation or whether that's through conversation, or some other way of finding out. I try to always just sort of be respectful to that. It's a different thing, I guess, a different way of approaching it.
So for me, if you want to send me red velvet brownies from Great American Cookie Company, or you can give me a chocolate chip cookie cake, which I've had multiple times for my birthday or Father's Day or whatever, with icing all over it.
So do you guys remember these forever about people, or are they only relevant in the moment of what you're doing at that time?
No, I remember things about, in 2002 to 2004, the manager that I had. I remember things about him, and learn business, but also learn on a personal level a lot of things. He did a lot of mentoring, not just teaching me how to sell things better, but I think to be a better person.
I remember many as well, especially when I formed a strong relationship with them. Probably every conversation and every preference may not always be there. I don't remember every personal preference for the employee. So some of it was situational, but for those that where I had a strong relationship, I still remember. I could still today go get them the same thing if they were there. So it just depends on how deep the relationship was.
So for the record, for you guys, I don't remember them at all. I may learn it and use it and make the person feel great, and then it's gone.
Mm.
Gone out the window. And it's not
just,
that I don't
yeah.
care. It's not that I don't care. I would love to remember that stuff about people. I really would. My brain doesn't do that.
But I've seen people take it to another level where they've actually documented and they go in,
That's what they
do. Yeah. They know every little detail, like NASCAR, like Dr.
On your
Pepper, every little
iPhone.
detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, it's just all memory. There's nothing written down. It's just what I remember about people in the interaction, especially if you've worked with or been with people for a long time, you'll remember those things.
Yeah. Well, you guys have both been great. Is there any other final questions that anybody wants to ask? It is about time for us to end this today. All right.
So one thing I made a note, and I wanted to connect to something Wendy said. We both have like that team sports background, and I think this is kind of answer Diana's question. I was a catcher growing up, and I love and as Wendy, and that's why it's great to talk to each other and kind of share. Because I remember being a catcher, I like being able to see the whole entire field. So that's like being at the top of the marketing channel from the with the manufacturer. I got to see all the action kind of came to me, right? The pitch came to me, any throw in, all the runners at home plate, and then I also was there to deny the other team from scoring or to strike, to call the right. And then whenever I was in high school, and even probably right before that, I loved whenever I was allowed to call the pitches, especially with a pitcher that I knew how he threw and he liked the way I called him. And so there was individualization there. And we, he couldn't throw. I remember one really good friend of mine, he couldn't throw it hard enough to break a window, but we would strike people out left and right because I remembered, Wendy, what that batter had done the last time we'd grown up together playing in all-star tournaments against each other or whatever. And I remembered their tendencies, or I would look down at their feet to see where they're, I was playing off of them, and that's my adaptability number 10.
That's amazing.
It is.
And I don't even think about it.
It's natural.
Easy. Yeah, it's natural.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. I really, really appreciate this discussion today. It was very informative, very interesting, and I appreciate y'all taking the time to come out.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you.
Same here.
It was great.
Thank
you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.